The back channel's asking for practical stuff. What do we do? You're asking for joy and delight. So let's focus on some of that. And the analogy I'm going to give you is with sport. It seems curious for me to be standing here talking about excellent English sport. There's a sort of oxymoron there, but there isn't anymore. What we learned coming into 2012, and some of you will know I'm lucky enough to work sometimes with the elite coaches in our elite sports. And I work with them on learning. One of the things I've learned from them in spades is that you look at every detail. On the bike, you look at the wind drag on the tape on the handlebars, you look at the caps on the valve covers, you look at the hairs on the legs, you look at every damn detail and build excellent sport, every last minute detail, every last minute detail too. You can read that any which way you like. So I wanted to do that this morning in just a few minutes really, with teaching and learning, and where better to start off really than with maths. Richard yesterday mentioned we were chatting about maths and trying to re-engage his own daughter with, at how old was she? 13 with, oh, yeah, with, good luck mate. You know, when you start saying as your eyes go, when we start saying as your eyes go around the school, they're going to lead you back to maths. You know, why not start marking up the staircases? I've been into schools where the flipping stairs, every stair says keep left, you know, and you speculate how stupid you'd have to be as a kid to forget between stairs which side you're supposed to be walking on. You know, or you can use the steps to teach maths and to teach language, or you can build posts all around the school that challenge you with how tall you are metrically or imperially, or you can build. This is Mark Oliphant College in Adelaide, where room 9 doesn't say room 9, it says square root of 81. Sort it out for yourself, you know. By the way, room 11 is the atomic number of sodium, so you know it keeps you on your toes a little bit. And as they walk around the school, they see trees made of numbers and trees made of letters, and it's all pretty seductive. And here in Melbourne, kids are walking around the park, you know, with their GPS device enabled, drawing Christmas trees on the park as a maths exercise, you know. So, of course we can make maths more seductive. Of course we can look at every tiny detail. And that maths seduction leads us into computer science. There's a bunch of kids I worked with in London last January. They're kids from Spain. I'm a professor in Madrid as well as in Bournemouth these days. Kids from Spain, kids from England. They were doing computer science. Of course, we dressed them up as binary numbers. You shout a number, they stand in a row, which was all quite jolly. Of course, we wanted them to program, so over the 4 days from a standing start, we had them programming. They were programming those little Raspberry Pi devices, which are, I think 14,000 Raspberry Pis got into UK schools in the last term. Little naked $30 computer that you can program and work with yourself. And the kids enjoyed the Raspberry Pi programming so much, they built a game. Then they got a little ambitious by the end of day 2, and they developed a controller for their game made out of bananas. You touch left, touch right, touch up, touch down. The bananas are the controller. And that was going pretty well. So the little kids who'd been learning from the big kids put up a sign to the teachers saying, come and play our game. And the teachers came and played their game. But meanwhile, the big kids were thinking, I'll tell you what, we could do something even better with our code. And what the big kids did, and by the way, the big kids started dressing as computer scientists, you know, they in a rather encouraging way, you know. But the codes belied the genius within, because they managed to get one of those AR drones up and flying, having hacked into the code that normally goes between your phone and the drone, and got it running with their, well, actually, not just with their Raspberry Pis. If you just a little glimpse of, can you see that little glimpse of yellow there? Look, the little blighter's actually got the damn thing flying with the bananas, you know, which is pretty cool. Young kids chasing after the role model of older kids reinforcing their understanding by working with younger kids. And of course, they couldn't have done any of that without phones in their hands. And I remember when we first put phones into schools, yeah, I am that old, the very first phone we put into the hand of a girl, she said, flipping heck, she said, I can phone people in France and practice my French, you know, straight off the box. And of course, what we've seen since, this was me, I don't know, 10 years or more ago, walked into a classroom, the kids were doing their revision notes on a mobile phone. It was on the desk screen up in front of them, as schools all around the world have learned to do. And I thought, well, that's interesting. I'll take a picture of that with my phone. Got out the phone to take a picture of their phone, at which point the class blogger with her phone jumped up to take a picture with my phone, taking a picture of their phone, you know. And I thought, a decade ago, I thought, this could work pretty good, this could, you know. And of course now, you know, if I look around the world, you know, here we are in Denmark, phones are out, the laptops are out, the slates are out, every damn piece of technology is out, and you're all chanting the mantra here, a turned off device is a turned off child, and you know how important that is. That's not what's happening around the world. That details we missed if I go to New York. This is astonishing stuff in New York. Phones have been banned in the classroom by their mayor, so this is the pure loyalty electronic storage van that sits outside your school. When you arrive in the morning, you check in your phone, walk through the school gate, pay them $1. When you come out at the end of the day, you get your phone back and take it home. I mean, absolute rank insanity, but that's the kind of stuff we used to do in sport in England not so many years ago. We just did what we thought was right because it's what we used to do. Now we know better. And of course, once they got phones in their hands, then you're really cooking with gas, because now the kids can write on the desks, they can write on the walls, they can write on surfaces, they can write on their cupboards, they can write on glass, they can play games on glass, they can have 17-metre long walls. These kids built this wall themselves, and they do all their classwork on the wall. Teacher walks around behind, makes little comments. If you're having a bit of a lazy day, you're just standing in front of a blank wall and you feel a bit of a silly billy, to be honest, you know. So it works pretty well, and if you need help, the teacher can see who needs help. And it all works fabulously, because at the end of the day, they just get their phones out and they take a copy from the wall with their phones. Can you imagine anything dafter than at the end of the day they got out a piece of paper and tried to copy from the wall what they'd been doing onto their books? Well, I go into schools where the teachers write on the wall and expect the kids still to make a copy. Total learning means rubbing your eyes and saying, let's look at every damn detail of how we do this, and let's see if we can do it better. Let's see maybe if ringing a bell and expecting every class to use the toilet simultaneously was a big mistake. Well, we know it's a big mistake because we know that children using school toilets that look like this, we know the data. 75% of children in Sweden and England, and doubtless here, try and get through the day without using the school toilets ever. We know that 57% of school girls in all the countries I've surveyed try and get through, well, not just try, but have never defecated on the school premises in their entire school career. And we know that the impact of that on their learning is dehydration. We know that they don't drink water to help them through the day, because if they drink water, they have to use the toilet. And if they don't drink water in the afternoon, they're going to be dehydrated. If they're dehydrated, their neurons are going to be starved of the energy that they need. The kids are going to be dumber in the afternoon. They can't concentrate. Their tongues start to swell up. They're less willing to contribute. They think and learn less well because we've got dreadful toilets. This toilet was clearly built by a pervert of some sort. The wall is barely as low as the bowl. Can you imagine building toilets that look like that in a world where every kid is carrying a camera? It's beggars belief. I mean, even Tom, I think, probably when he was 10, would have struggled to fight the urge to take a picture of his mate's pants under the door of the toilet if he was given the chance. It's what boys do, you know. So, as you know. So, golly gosh, what do school toilets look like? Here are some of them. Look, oh gosh, the wash basin is in the cubicle. So if you have a bit of an accident, you can clean yourself up in the cubicle. You don't have to go outside, which means if you've got a bit of an upset tum, you're more likely to go to school. The attendance goes up. Here's one of my Caribbean schools. These are all my toilets, by the way. This is a Caribbean school. We converted the stock cupboard at the back of the class to be a toilet. So you don't have to wait until the bell goes and 500 bladders are drained simultaneously. You know, you can actually just pop up and use the thing when it springs to mind. And look, school toilets are starting to look like airline toilets, aren't they now? And some of them are looking quite delightful inside, really rather playful and really rather effective. The tiny detail of getting toilets right transforms learning, as every tiny detail does. And by the way, those tiny details include, let's have a look at class size. You know, when I look at class sizes, you know, I hear unions saying, we're going to fight for class size. Wrong, wrong, and wrong. You might want to fight for the ratio of children to teachers, but I'll tell you what, you know, here's a super class running in Tasmania. The teachers are wearing hard hats, not because it's flipping dangerous, or it does look a bit That's like a touch like a war zone. The kids here are making a cardboard model of their school and of their village, and they're spending a whole day doing it. It's a discovery day, it's a super class, and everybody knows which teacher's doing what because their hard hats help them to know that the guy with the red hat is the one who will help you when you're stuck. The one with the yellow hat is the one who's going to help you if you're bored and coasting, and the one with the blue hat who's busy and not in the picture is the one who's leading the lesson and doing all the work and actually did, by the way, the lesson prep. And everybody that's gone down the superclass route knows full well that 3 teachers working in parallel, doing separate and discrete things, the kids know exactly who's who, work a flipping sight faster than one good teacher doing all those 3 things in series. And when I say everybody knows it, here's one of our schools in England, one of the new academies were built under the Labour programme, Building Schools for the Future, fabulous building. They just, threw away the book, said, let's look at every detail, see how we can do it better. And this is their website page where they're advertising to parents. They're saying, come to our school. And look, they're saying, come to our school because in particular, we've got huge classes. Parents are queuing around the block to get into the place. It's already fully. You don't want to go to that school down the road, they're tiny classes, 25 to 1. What will they learn? And people tell me that parents are reluctant in all this. I don't believe it. I've never seen a parent queuing for a dentist that's got a sign over the door saying, just like we were in the 1950s, come on in. Just really doesn't work like that. Or, oh, look, I've got to drive to Sydney, where's my Morris 1000? Parents have understood that the world moves forward, and boy, do they understand that learning moves forward when we show them the detailed work that we're doing. So it's not just the super classes and the toilets and the writable surfaces, it's getting the kids to work together at different ages. Just look at this picture. This is my iPacker school down in Portland on the south coast of England, and the big strapping lad here at 15, who was, a so-so technology student until he became a role model, until he became an expert, until he had the job of helping the little ankle biter standing down beside him. And look at what a mature student he's being. Look, the kid's holding the wood, the kid's doing the sawing, he's protecting the saw with his hands, he's got his thumbs for, well, he's either got his thumbs in or they've gone already, I'm not quite sure. But contrast it, if you will, with the teacher behind him who's wrapped her arms around the kid, who's holding the saw around the wood, and the kid's doing nothing really apart from wondering what happens next, And people talk about where do we get the CPD for this, because we've got kids as our key helpers, we can do this kind of stuff. These little kids have done a drawing, they've turned the drawing into a little 3D picture over here, they've turned the picture into something a little bit more, so they've turned the picture into something a little bit more sophisticated with pigtails. The pigtails are generating the 3D design here, and look at the age of the kid that's doing all the work. She's 7. Same age as Peter, by the way, when he came up earlier. So, where would we find the CPD to do all that? We've got a flipping army of CPD. They're called children. When we look at the tiny details of how this can work, that's when we move it forward. And of course, it needs to be playful. Of course, it needs to be enjoyable. I don't just mean playful in a light way. I mean playful in a useful way. I mean, of course, the staircases could be made a little nicer if they're stereosauruses. And this one from Denmark. Of course, the kids, even when they're big, teenage West London oiks, still like to dress up as pirates and have fun. Not, by the way, just because it's fun to dress up as pirates, because it's a really good way to get into grammar. And pirates, of course, only have one tense. So you've got the present tense. Pirates have no future and no past. So they well, that's how they got to be pirates, And mostly they say things like, ussies, pirates, ussies, which is a really nice segue into English grammar, isn't it? And of course, when we challenge children to do interesting things with light and science in the middle of Dublin, of course we get things like this. These kids have programmed their computer so they can play a game of Pong on the building opposite, and it's a nice little science. Yeah, well, you can see what's happening. It's just good fun, really. But it took a lot of programming, it took a lot of thought, it took a bit of maths, and actually it took quite a lot of clearing up the accidents in the road outside. So it went a bit. I'm not saying this is all perfect, but I'll tell you what, it worked really well. And the next year, the same week, we had people driving around town doing all sorts of crazy, creative Festival of Light things, light up in the middle of Dublin. So of course it needs to be playful, and of course kids left to their own devices can do some pretty extraordinary things. This is, well, it's actually my daughter. Hello, Melissa. And I think we're just going to play a little bit of this, I think, actually. Yeah, let's have a... Oops, Daisy. Yeah, so here she goes with... we're just wandering around her class, and I think you can get a little tiny insight, really, into the independence of children, the technology of children, the playfulness of the space, the windows on the world, that every screen on the wall is just Skyping to other schools. The kids can walk up and wave to people in other continents and subcontinents. It is just genuinely a delightful little view. If I just come down to a bit smaller, we can rush through that a bit because we ain't got much time. You just get a sense of these kids are spectacularly independent. And have you seen a teacher yet? And they're just getting on with their lives, and look how much they're flipping enjoying it. So what we know is, what we're certain about, is that this can really, really, really work. And where do we get the attention? Where do we get the focus? Where do we get the reflective practice? Well, in sport, it was the sports stars that we turned to. These are cyclists, but trackside with their tablets out, looking at their data, analysing their performance, their data, having their discussion with their reflective practice, exactly as Tom said. And here's a little example of how good that can be. So here's a bunch of kids who were worried about the level of noise in their classroom. They have a decibel meter on their phone. One of the things that was contributing to their noise were the chairs. So they thought, hey, maybe if we stuck balls on the end of the chairs, this would make it, this is in Madrid, by the way, it would make it a little quieter. And they thought, okay, let's test that out. So here are their chairs. How we get the decibel level down. Let's try their little experiment. This is me retesting the work they'd done. That's pretty cool. That's pretty cool. I shall pass on your joy. So, quick conclusion, really, because we're tight as hell for time. Trusting the children, asking them the simple question about how can we make learning better. It's really all about looking at every single detail, every minute detail, every chair. Just look at the shape of those chairs that you're sitting on, by the way. If you wanted to design a chair that was bad for reading, you're pretty much sitting on the prototype, aren't you? It's got an upright back, you can't move, you can't rock backwards, you can't move forward, you can't turn to the person behind. There is not a child in Australia who goes home to read on a chair that looks like the one you're sitting on. And almost every child in almost every school in Australia is tortured with reading on chairs like that. Of course, it's ineffective. Total learning means looking at every detail. If the chairs are hard, by the way, the blood rushes. After about 11 minutes of sitting on a hard chair, the blood rushes to your bottom. Your body sends out a kind of a hard chair bottom alert signal. And the main place you've got spare blood in your body is in your head, so it decants blood from your head down to your bottom, and there goes your concentration again, as if the toilets hadn't already got to you, and the lack of playfulness hadn't already screwed you up, and the van outside with your phone parked in it, So this is starting to feel like pedagogic waterboarding, isn't it? So there is hope, and kids all around the world are revealing that hope. It's a project I was involved with some years ago in Thailand. I only put it up there so you can see what's on her T-shirt. It says researcher. Kids armed with the research and reflection of doing it better are unstoppable. And I wouldn't trust universities to do it. This is a joyful image from a university in England. I'm not going to mention the university because it would be unfair on Birmingham, but I found it rather joyful 4 years ago to find they had an innovation room. Oh, I'm going to go and do innovation. I'll be into room 253. The best thing about it is that there's a timetable for innovation. I'm sorry, your innovation's over now, mate. You've got to get back to her and all that. And look at the stunningly joyful. Wow, is that cutting edge or what in the background? I'm not going to trust the universities. I am going to trust the kids. Total learning means every minute detail is examined and re-examined. And actually, curious enough, Peter, wise beyond his years at 7, up here on the stage this morning with his granddad, absolutely nailed it, didn't he? You said to him, and he said, I've already said that, granddad. A whole generation around the world have already said, I'll tell you what, our learning could be better. Your learning could be better. We could do this better. It's time we listened. It's time we went for it. It's time we got to find out just how good our kids could be. Thank you very much.